I now want to talk about worker rights because that's important and cool. And Stacey, do you want to start us off?
Well, where to start? Workers' rights. We are all entitled to them. If you have a job, you should be protected.
Let's talk about the court case that happened in Glasgow.
Edinburgh.
In Edinburgh, beg your pardon, with the strippers who won.
Going back to 2018, the United Voices of the World, which is the trade union, basically worked with us to establish a trade union branch for sex workers. And that has kind of proven to be one of the most sort of like powerful and deeply feminist ways of organising that I've seen. But in recent years, what Edinburgh City Council were doing was trying to shut down the clubs by sort of like a sneaky backdoor tactic of saying, yeah, you can stay open, but we're not going to give you licenses. We're not going to give you any new licenses, and we're not going to renew your existing licenses. So the dancers who were working in them, who were unionised, got together and they crowdfunded, I think it was like 20 grand in a month to pay for a judicial review to take Edinburgh City Council to court over this decision, to do something called a judicial review, which is to get a judge to look at a decision, a legal decision. And the judge found in their favour and was in agreement that if the council was to shut down the clubs, they would be putting precarious workers into even more precarious work. Because if you don't have regulated spaces, then you only have unregulated spaces, which are in private and they're driven underground. I'm seeing a lot of people nodding. And this is not a difficult idea. It's not a difficult concept to understand that if you criminalize a marketplace, you've driven it, it's run by criminals. The benefit of decriminalizing sex work is that sex workers can then self-organize and we can create businesses, and all of the safety methodology that we rely on is allowed. You don't have to do it all secretly and underground.
Yeah, it's that thing of, brothels, it's illegal to own a brothel, yet that's the one thing that would help to keep us safe, and it's illegal. It drives me crazy. Like that it's almost like they want us to be on our own, and rather than with other people and with support.
So, Elizabeth, has the subject of worker rights come up in your career that much? Is it something that, I don't want to put you on, I am putting you on the spot now.
Oh yeah, you can put me on the spot for sure, yeah.
But how does that impact the way that you do work and some of the differences in between the sex work that you do, where you have presumably quite a lot of control within that, and then also trying to write a book and working with publishers and publicists and some of the differences between those that you've seen?
Yeah, I mean, when I hear sex or workers' rights, I think in terms of when I was a sex worker, we don't have any. That's how it felt for me for many years. And I didn't really talk about it a lot with my colleagues, but we just knew, we felt like we had to do this thing of hiding and not having a voice, and feeling like I had to keep silent for many, many years. And I just got to the point, I thought, you know what, I'm not a bad person. I'm a good person and I enjoy what I do. I'm a sexually free kind of person. Yeah. When I was open with some people, so now ex-friends, I was either judged or shamed or openly abused in public, like verbally. And that really taught me, I have to be really careful who I tell about my profession and keep that circle really small. I think it was partly what I put on myself, but also how I'd been programmed over the years, and probably things I'd seen in the media about the industry. And, it kind of goes deep into your subconscious that it's not something you can really talk about.
But also, you will be treated differently. Like, you can't put sex worker on your CV if you're going for a job at Boots. No. You can't put CV, you can't tell your landlord that you're a sex worker or your letting agency. If you try and get a bank account, so here's one for you. Monzo, the bank, have a sneaky little thing. When you go to open an account with Monzo, they'll ask for your name and your, email and your details. And then it starts asking you, so what do you do for a living? And they give you a drop-down menu. And in the drop-down menu, one of the options is adult entertainer, adult performer. No, it's not good. Because a bunch of sex workers were like, oh, great, cool. Yeah. They're giving that as an option. they would select the option, and at which point Monzo will ban you from ever opening an account again. Yes,
That's awful.
This is fact.
We're really up against it.
Elizabeth, do you mind just talking about your petition?
Yes, so basically I'm campaigning to amend the Equality Act to include professions into the protected characteristics. Because for sex workers, when it comes to housing, banking and employment, generally we have to lie and hide. And I had many gaps on my CV when I was applying for the jobs. And what that does is cause sex workers to stay where they are if you can't be open about what you've done in your past. So, it feels like an uphill struggle now. I'm just trying something out. If this doesn't work, then I'll try something else. But my aim is to criminalise sex work discrimination.
Great.
I have a question for you about the petition.
For sure, yeah.
Can I ask it?
Yeah.
I'll be the first one. I wonder, what do you do when critics have come along to this petition and say, so what are you saying? You want to protect people's professions or people being discriminated against because of their profession, like bankers, like people who have, because if you're saying that the problem is that people are treated differently or seen differently by the rest of society because of the job they do, people who do jobs that are deeply unpopular and, we're all able to slag off bankers to our heart's content. If this is a way of protecting people's jobs, what do you do about the people who have the jobs that are not sex work?
So it was the Equality Act. It was set up for, for equality. So it's purely based on discrimination. So a banker can apply for housing and banking and other jobs and not be discriminated against.
Right.
Whereas sex workers generally have to hide or lie about what we do. So it's purely based on discrimination. I think traffic wardens, I think they're another profession. They get abused and discriminated against and not particularly popular themselves. Yeah. So it's purely for that reason, is to stop the discrimination. So, originally I tried to set up a whole new act, but my team said, look, setting up a whole new act is going to be really, really hard. Maybe try and amend something that's already existing. So like I said, I'm trying with this one. If this doesn't work, try something else. But it's purely based on the discrimination of sex workers. But yes, it does mean covering the whole profession.